Hello everyone, welcome to this episode. Now in this episode we are going to particularly focus on a very interesting use case, and that use case is you as a shop owner, online shop owner, wanted to communicate with your customers when they perform certain activities. Now imagine that you have a pizza shop. So your customers will log into your website and they find any pizza that they are interested in. They might add it to the cart as well, but they will not proceed to checkout. So at that point you will track that user journey. Okay, this customer logs in and he add these certain pizzas to his cart, but he did not check out. So you wait for some time, let's say an hour or so, and still if that customer did not purchase that pizza that he originally selected, then you will go ahead and send him a message. So these messages could be an email message or a push notification, SMS, and so on. So you can do that easily with Amazon Pinpoint. So that's the main service that we are going to explore in today's video, and we are going to implement the exact scenario that I just told you. How do you inspect different user journeys and then communicate with those customers so you can get their business? I'm really excited about this video because this is based on a blog post that was published by Amazon. I will share the link in the description as well. So without any further ado, let's get started.
Alright guys, now this is the blog post that I previously mentioned, solving abundant cart scenarios using Amazon Pinpoint event triggered journeys. Now this is a very interesting blog post. You guys can go ahead and read it. And here in this blog post you can find the code snippet in Python and also the different steps that we need to follow, and finally the output of the pinpoint as well. So you can go ahead and read for more information and what are the next steps for this. And today we are going to implement the pizza use case I just talked to you about. And for that we're going to be using AWS Amplify framework so that I can securely call this Amazon Pinpoint endpoint directly from my front end. Now guys, one thing to remember, using Pinpoint to communicate with your end users is not only applicable for solving this abundant cart scenario, right? There could be so many use cases for your applications that you need to communicate to different user segments. Now these users are your end users. So with this type of a communication mechanism, you can get them interact with your application really well. Alright, so here's the code. So if you go to this URL, you can find the code here. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and copy this repository URL. And I will take Visual Studio Code, File, Open. I'll create a new folder, Pizza Store, create and open it. And here we go. I'll take an integrated terminal and then I'll directly clone that code here. Git clone URL to this place. Alright, so now I have the code here in this folder. Now let's go ahead and run this sample application. So before running it, I will do npm i to install all the dependencies in the package.json file. And after that, I will do npm run start. Clear my screen and then I will do npm run start to start our React application. Now this is our pizza store landing page. So here I have three types of pizza where I can just pick and then add to cart and then checkout. Now for the rest of this tutorial, let's imagine you can select a couple of products and then click add to cart. So then all these products will be added to the cart. Now this add to cart button click is the action that will trigger the user journey at my Pinpoint backend. Now we haven't created that Pinpoint backend yet. We are going to create along with the other AWS resources. So essentially in that user journey, it will check once a user has clicked this add to cart button, will he check out that cart and purchase the item by clicking checkout button. So let's imagine when you click this checkout button, he will be charged and he's done with the ordering. Now for any reason, if a user adds some item to the cart, but he did not click this checkout button or purchase these items, our backend Pinpoint service will wait for 1 hour until this user click this checkout button. If he did not click that checkout button during that hour, then an email will be sent out to this user. Now you might be wondering, how do we capture the email address? Now that's why we are going to create a sign up and login screen so the user can sign up with an email address and they can log into this application. So the user will always have an email address which we can use to communicate with him. Now in order to add that login screen and authentication, we are going to use Amplify framework. Not only it will help us to get an email address for the user, but also it will provide the permission to our React application such that it can communicate with the Pinpoint service. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and code. Okay, so first and foremost, let me stop the server and then let's go ahead and install Amplify CLI. Go ahead and install it. I have already done that. And after that, you're going to have to configure Amplify. By configuring, I mean creating a user in AWS and associating that user's credential with Amplify. So you can use this command amplify configure. That will help you to easily configure your credentials. Now once you have the CLI, let's go ahead and initialize an Amplify project by typing amplify in it. Now before entering this command, click this folder and delete this entire folder. So let's create from scratch and hit enter. You can give it a name. I'll call it Pizza Store. I will choose the default for React. You can pick the AWS profile that you have previously created. So I will use this profile. Now, by the way, guys, one thing to remember when you are configuring your Amplify, make sure to use US East 1 or North Virginia region. Because Pinpoint services as of now is available only in a certain region. US East 1 is one of that. Okay, now that is done. Now I can use Amplify CLI to create the cloud resources in AWS. But before that, I want to install Amplify JavaScript library. Now for that you can use npm npmi AWS Amplify. Now you don't actually have to run it because if you look at your package.json file, it is already installed when you do initial npm install. And together with that, have a look. We have installed the UI React library as well. Now this UI React Amplify library allows us to use some of the ready-made components. Now we are going to use one of the ready-made components for authentication. Okay, now that we have Amplify CLI and also Amplify library, let's go ahead and configure it. So I will go to source and I will go to index.js. This is one of the initial files that get loaded, and go ahead and uncomment this. Now here we import Amplify from AWS Amplify library, and then I will also import AWS exports. Now this file is auto-generated file. So at the moment it's only the region associated with it. When we are adding more resources at the back end, this file will be populated. So we require that configuration, and then we'll do amplify.configure, passing in that configuration file. Now let's go ahead and add our authentication service as well as Pinpoint service. So I'll type this command amplify add auth. So this is going to create a user pool. So we can add our users into that pool. So I'm going to use default configuration. My users can use username to log in. Now I'm done. So next, let's go to app.js file and I'm going to uncomment this line. So it's basically I'm importing with authenticator high order function as well as amplify sign out component from amplify UI React library. Then I will go ahead and copy this with authenticator high order component, and then I will take out that previous export statement and uncomment this one. Here we have just added with authenticator HOC and pass our app. I will also uncomment this. So it's basically the amplify sign out component which will give us the sign out button. So we have successfully added the authentication. Now I can do amplify push. But before that, let's add another resource. So this time I will do amplify add analytics. So this is where we are going to configure our Pinpoint backend. So it will ask me whether I want the analytic provider as the Pinpoint or Kinesis stream. I will use Pinpoint. Pinpoint resource name, I will accept the default. And here I will accept the recommended settings. Yes. Okay. Let me clear the screen and let's run amplify status. So as you can see, I have auth category configured and analytics category configured. Now it's time for me to push these changes to AWS, so it will create all the resources at AWS end. So I'll do amplify push, hit enter. So this will take few minutes. While it is creating the resources, let's go ahead and configure our analytics or the pinpoint. So I'll open up pages folder and go to store.js. Here I will uncomment this line. So it will require analytics service from AWS Amplify JavaScript library, so I can easily communicate with my pinpoint backend. Now in order to communicate with our customer, we need an email address. So that's why you should uncomment this. So we are using use effects, and this will return the currently authenticated user from our Cognito user pool, and then we are going to set that user to a variable. So here I have used use states, and I'm going to use set user function here. Next, you can see this is our list of pizza is hard coded, and this is our add to cart button and then the checkout button. So when someone click add to cart button, it is going to call add to cart method. Now the add to cart method is this function. Now in this function, we are calling two methods of pinpoints backend. Now here I'm using analytics, which I have imported right here from AWS Amplify JavaScript library. So using this analytics, I call update endpoint and record methods. Now this update endpoint method is going to create an endpoint in Pinpoint, or else it's going to update an existing endpoint. Now what is an endpoint in Pinpoint context? So endpoint in Pinpoint is really an email address, or it could be a phone number, or it could be a mobile device really. So here when we are updating the endpoint, we are setting the channel type as email. So it's going to create an email endpoint, and we can pass in the email address right here, and then any custom attributes that we want to update together with this endpoint. So here we get the email address from the currently logged in user, and we are passing along the cart and whether or not he has actually purchased it. Now, why do we really have to record this attribute? Well, there are a couple of purposes. One would be to segment users. Now, for example, I can create a user segment who have not purchased their pizzas. And I can use these user attributes or custom attributes when communicating with these customers as well. Now, also I can pass in a user ID. Now, this is particularly useful if the same user is logged in with multiple devices. So since it is the same user ID, all these users will be identified as a single endpoint. So after we have updated the endpoint, then we are going to send the event or record the event. So the event that we are recording here is add to cart. And I will show you how to use this add to cart event to start our user journey. So essentially we are listening for this add to cart event. As soon as it is triggered, then we are going to start our user journey. So I'll show you in just a bit. Next, we have the checkout button, and this is the handler function. So it has a similar implementation. So first I'm going to update the endpoint, and then we are going to record another event. So what is the difference between these two update endpoints? Now if you look at it carefully, in the very first update event, we set the purchase to no. That means the guy has only added it to the cart. So he has not yet purchased it. But after a checkout, we are setting the purchased attribute to yes. And finally, we are going to emit another event that is checkout event. Now, these are the two important methods I just wanted to have a discussion with you. Next, let's go to AWS console and see how to build our user journey with Pinpoint service. So I'll take the integrated terminal and then do amplify console and hit enter. That should open up the Amplify console. Now this is our Amplify project. You see my pizza store, and these are the two categories that we have added: authentication and analytics. Now authentication is our Cognito user pool, analytics is our Pinpoint service. So let me click here, and then I can click this button to view in Pinpoint. Okay, now I'm inside the Pinpoint project, my pizza store -dev. So what I'm essentially going to do is to create some user segments and then use those segments to create a user journey. But before that, I haven't enabled any features yet. So what are the features? So let's click add feature. Now these are the communication mechanisms to end user. So we are going to use email. So let's go ahead and click manage. So in the identity tab, I will click edit and then enable email channel for this project. Now to send email to our end users, Pinpoint is using SCS, so simple email service. But at the beginning, it is using the sandbox environments. So that means we have to verify any email addresses if we want to test. So let's go ahead and verify one of these email addresses. So you can type in your email address and then click verify. It's going to send an email to that email address. And by clicking on the link, it will make sure it will go ahead and mark as verified. But I have already added a couple of email addresses as verified. So let me add one of these. Now let's set this address as our default send address. So it's representing our pizza store. So let's say hello from my pizzas. Okay, I'll click save. So I'll again click edit and I will verify another email address. Now we don't have to do that when we are publishing it to production. So then it will be out of the sandbox environment. Okay, so that's the first step. So we enable email channel to our project. Now let's go back here. Then I need to create a user segment. Now if you guys can remember, we are creating or updating endpoints when somebody is clicking that add to cart button. And I'm passing some attributes like purchase true or false or yes or no. So based on that attribute, I can create different segments. So I'll go ahead and click create a segment and I can either use a CSV or JSON file if I already have the list of users. But I'm going to build a segment. So let's call it made a purchase. So this segment will represent all the users who have made a purchase. That means we are going to check the purchase attribute value is equal to yes. So include any audience. So I'm going to add a criteria here, add criteria. So select an attribute. Now I don't see any custom attribute just yet because I haven't triggered any add to cart action. So let's go ahead and start our application npm run start and then we'll make some orders. Well, first we need to create those users. So let's create a user called Manoj F. I'll use one of the verified email addresses, paste the confirmation code and click confirm. Here we go. I'm inside my app. Now do you see my sign out button right here? Now I will open inspect element so I can look at all the network calls. Then I'll select a couple of pizzas and click add to cart. Now do you see there are two API calls. Now first one is the update endpoint API call. Now if I look at the payload, here we go. This is the address, the email address that is fetched from the logged in user. And the attributes, see cart, I have added these two items. Purchase is no because I only added it to the cart, right? And some other additional user attributes. Next is our event. So here we go. So this is the add to cart event. And then I'll go ahead and click checkout. So that should emit two more events. Update endpoint event. So this time the attribute value of purchase is yes. And this is the checkout event. Alright, so let's go to our Pinpoint and I'll do a refresh here. Add criterias. Now here we see cart and purchase attribute under custom endpoints. Now I see the use attribute as well, the username. So what I'm essentially checking is whether this purchase attribute value is equal to, I should get the value as well, yeah, yes. So this segment will group the users, in this case the email endpoints, who has purchased pizzas. So let me go ahead and create this segment. Click I understand. So have a look at this. So I have a total of 1 endpoints because only one user has been yet registered and that user is eligible for this particular segment. So let's go ahead and create another user. Now this is another verified email address and create account. So from this user, I'm again going to add one of these pizzas to the cart and I'm not going to check out. So my purchase attribute value should be no. So let's go back to our Pinpoint and I will click the same segment and let's go ahead and click edit. And this time I should see the no value as well. There we go. No is there, but I'm not going to do any changes. I will just cancel this out because I wanted to have a segment that segment all the users who have purchased. So after that, I can use this segment either to create campaigns or create journeys. So I'm going to go ahead and create a journey. So click create journey. So I'll give it a name, abandoned cart journey. So what do I want to do in this journey? First, I will start this journey as soon as someone add an item to the cart. So I'll choose this option, how to start the journey, add a participant when they perform an activity, and that activity is an event. Well, the event is not yet appearing. Maybe it will take some time. But let me go ahead and type it out. So add to cart. So let's see if that works. Hopefully. And I'm not going to add any other additional attributes because I wanted to start my journey when my Pinpoint backend receive the add to cart event. So I'll click save. It looks good. So now we know user has added some pizzas to their cart. So as the next activity, I will click in the drop down and this time I'm going to select yes or no split. So I'm going to use my previously created segment as a condition. So here the condition type is segment and the segment I'm going to pick is the made a purchase. So this made a purchase segment will segment users who have bought the pizzas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for an hour. So I'm not going to evaluate immediately because we can't expect somebody to buy an item as soon as he added to the cart. So I will evaluate this after 1 hour. There we go. Click save. So even after an hour, if the guy has not purchased the items that is there in the cart, then he probably have abandoned that cart. So if yes, that means if he has made a purchase, we are not going to do anything. But if it is not, we are going to send him an email. So I will pick here and send an email item. I can pick the sender's email and then I can choose a email template. Now I don't have an email template, so let's go ahead and create an email template. My pizza abandoned template. I can give it a subject. Did you forget to say checkout? And now I can provide the message body. So let's say h3, hey, whatever the username. So how can we get the username? So that's where this open attribute finder. Click there and can click custom attributes, load custom attributes, and I will load these attributes really. So I'll click this to copy and then come here, paste. So you can see it has added some curly braces. This should evaluate to the username. Your delicious pizza is waiting. Why don't you buy it now? Okay, that should do. I will click create. Then I'll get back to where I left off here. Do a refresh. Choose email template and I will select my pizza abandoned cart and save. So this looks all good. So I'll click review. Then it says we are ready to go. Click next. Some review points. So one of that states that we are still in the SES sandbox. So I can request for production access. And the end date of my journey is 18 months. I can, click here and change that if I want. I'm not going to do that. And I can also set the start date as well. So in this case, I'm immediately starting after the publishing. That should do. And I can click mark as reviewed. But in order to see the result, I have to wait for 1 hour, right? So what I will do instead is I will just evaluate it immediately. So I can show you the email immediately. And click mark as reviewed, publish. Your journey has been published, close. So it will be published in 4 minutes. Let's skip. Alright, so my user journey is published. Now I can see the execution matrices and engagement matrices. So currently there's no any users entered this journey. So let's try to add an item and see if we trigger this journey. Click add. Okay, let's do a refresh. And here you go. So I got one of the users entered the journey. So the user entered yes or no split. Since we are evaluating immediately, it resolved no and it has sent me an email. Let me show you that email.
Hey, look at this. I got my email. So it's from Hello from Pizza. And hey, Mano Jeff. So this is my username. Your delicious pizza is waiting. Why don't you go ahead and buy it? Now I could have include the URL as well so the user can easily click on that and get back to his cart. Alright guys, so this is what I want to show you. As you can see, there are a lot of possibilities with Pinpoint. Now when you're creating journey, you can select so many different steps. You can even check whether user has clicked the link in the email as well. So if he has not clicked it, then you can trigger another step, maybe to send another email. So guys, we have only scratched the surface of Pinpoint service, but there are so many things you can do with AWS Pinpoint service. So I invite you to look at their documentation and read more about it. Alright, so this is what I want to show you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in another video.